Thank you very much, Anders, for sharing one delivery to a smart city, which has a perfect fit both for Sweden and India. And we need to identify more of those and identify how we can collaborate around those. So I hope that you also take this Days During India Unlimited and the business delegation to team up with Indian and Swedish counterparts and discuss Indian-Swedish solutions further. Then it's time for our panel discussion. Mats Denninger, as Mikael said, he has a long CV. I do like to highlight that one of your roles has been as High Representative for International Environment Technology Cooperation for the government offices of Sweden. Mats, very welcome. And I like to call our panelists, Mr. Anders Grundströmer, Managing Director Scania, Rakesh Gupta, President Investment and Project Services, Hinduja Group, Mr. Göran Folkesson, CEO Clean Motion, Mikael Kindahl, Area Sales Manager Kale AB, Matti Vikula, CEO Scandinavian Biogas Fuels, and Mr. Jonas Törnblom, Director Marketing for NVAC.
Very well. So we are set and ready for this panel. I've already been given an excellent introduction from Anna, so we can spare time. I will spare time to skip that one on my own, but also confirm that we do have to keep the final time, which means that we have a little bit less than we initially initiated to have as time frame. You are very welcome to the panel, and I think we will just rush right into the discussion. And now I will start by giving the companies some few minutes, 2-3 minutes, to describe their business, products and services. And then there will of course be some follow-up questions and who knows, probably also some inter-panel discussions between you for the next half an hour. And yeah, Anders, you will not get any such time because you have had yours. Yes. I would like to first invite Mr. Rakesh Gupta from Hinduja Group. This is a very, I understand, a very diversified, an old company, 100 years old, isn't it? And you are in many relevant, business sectors relevant to smart cities, Symbiocities development, as telecom, transport, energy. So please, Mr. Gupta, what can you contribute to the Indian Smart Cities Initiative?
Thank you. I always believe why I'm the first. But coming back to the perspective what you're talking about, the smart cities, the infrastructure, the transportation, you know, a couple of things which we do worldwide. Now, all these things are the key parameters which we look at the larger perspective of a smart city. Now, for us, smart city is much more beyond the name. For us, it is more about the engine for growth. For us, it is more about looking in terms of how we give it back to the country where we are operating and our motherland vis-a-vis. Because we believe going forward, they are the drivers for the GDP growth, they are the drivers for the urbanization. And the way people are moving in terms of urban cities and the urban population clusters are growing up, I think that is where it will make a big change. One of the very small notable things which we have done was more into Africa, where we did a small smart city type of a project of BRT, which is the bus rapid transport system. And successfully, that has been classified as one of the best by the UNDP with 95% success rate in last 5 years. So that is one of the stories which we are taking back to India with regard to developing the new cities and largely looking to the various parameters, be it social, be it physical, be it infrastructural, and be it the day-to-day requirements. So we always believe that smart city is much beyond a word. It is also important and imperative that we start delivering on the smart city concept, which is beyond a word. So that is something which would be my submission to it.
Would you say that transport is the most strategic key sector for you in smart cities development? You are doing so many other things as well.
Yes, because we always see that in the urban areas, the population is a big issue.
Yeah.
When the population is a big issue, but natural, the population will move around. So the conveyance and the transportation will be further big an issue. And if we can ease out the traffic with regard to a dedicated corridor or some kind of a movement, I'm very sure that will make the city much more vibrant and much more livable. And ease out is not only referring to about making a corridor or something like that, but it's also about contributing to day-to-day life. Because if people reach home early, if people are relaxed in their transportation and conveyance from point A to point B, I think we are also making a point that they will be much more productive at their work, and they'll have much more healthy work-life balance.
So are you potential partners or competitors?
We are competitors. He's a Scania bus and we are Ashok Leyland bus. So we are competitors in some point of time.
Okay.
Maybe we can learn from each other.
Very much.
I hope so.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gupta. Göran Folkesson.
Yes.
Here you are. You are in a process to develop a very interesting concept for urban mobility. Tell us more about it. I saw it first in Indonesia some few years ago, but now you are also widely going into India. Göran,
right.
Please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We are developing a solution for first and last mile connectivity. We believe that the smart cities of the future must rely on public transportation. But public transportation can never get you to the doorstep. So there must be an interconnectivity and multimodality in transportation, and that is the first and last mile connectivity is what we try to offer. And we do that through an electric vehicle. It's actually a three-wheeler. You could say it's a super modern auto rickshaw, which all of you in India are very familiar with. And it's fully electric, which is critical because I think the most pressing issue is the air quality of the cities. To get better air quality, let's start by getting rid of all emissions with the small vehicles, because the electric vehicles has no tailpipe emission, and that's really critical. But I think it's also important that when we talk about electric vehicles, it's easy to look at the most famous example in the world today, and that is a Tesla, right? This is not what we are proposing. A Tesla is a huge vehicle. It's a great vehicle, a fantastic sports car, but it's not fitted for my concept of the smart cities, because energy will be also a demand. Getting the electricity to a Tesla, or the batteries needed for a Tesla. One Tesla battery could support 42 of our vehicles. And one Tesla supercharger station, that would be enough to supply 900 of the CB vehicles with charging. So this is downsizing at its best. So getting rid of the emissions, but also getting a safe vehicle, because perhaps some point in the future we will have a fully autonomous driving and there will be no accidents, but that is not the situation today, and until then we need safe vehicles.
And when can I buy it in India?
It will start operation this summer in India.
And as far as I understand, summer is already in India.
Yes. We have 25 vehicles already in Delhi.
Okay. Thank you, Göran. Mikael Kindahl, urban mobility, that certainly indicates mobility, but sometimes you also have to park your vehicles, particularly the small ones. Probably not the ZB, I don't know, but what is your contribution to a smart city concept with what services you have to offer?
Thank you, Mats, for these words. Ladies and gentlemen, we certainly can contribute very much to the reduction of CO2 emissions in smart cities. Carla has 60 years of experience of working with parking solutions. We offer parking solutions where the payment terminals are bound together with 3G to a central system, the back office system, which then connects them all. Let's say like Stockholm, 1,200 terminals, or Chicago, 4,700 terminals. Big city, smart city. The statistics we generate tells the city how the parking behavior of all these parkers are. And our solution that way becomes an essential part of the parking plan of the city, and the parking plan itself is an essential part of the city's two major goals: to regulate traffic in general, and in particular, public transport. Those are the two most important things. And I would like to put a few things in your minds and your imagination. If we assume that a vehicle has a lifespan of 10 years, 90% of that time, where is it? It stands still. 10% of that time, it's on the move, if it's a private vehicle. So in order to regulate traffic, you need to know where it is 90% of its lifespan. So that will give you an idea. And just another one more thing. If you say, like in Bangalore, which has 5.5 million vehicles, whereof 40% are four-wheelers and the other 60% are two-wheelers, let's assume, counting low, the commuters spend 30 minutes to look for an empty parking bay. 30 minutes, 300 days a year, that's 150 hours you can spend just behind the car wheel and look for a parking bay. Personally, that would be 3 weeks of work, or maybe a week of holiday. Trust me, I'd rather go for the holiday. But then again, I would not like to spend the weekend or the holiday in a hill station where I go for another traffic congestion. So that gives you an idea that a good parking solution for the parking plan of the city can really make a difference. So just imagine 1 million cars driving 75 hours less a year in a city like Bangalore or New Delhi or other big cities. I think it can be done very easily. We have done it in Stockholm. We have a parking plan here in many other cities, and we have our references in Colombo, in Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, Bandung. And we believe very strongly now it's time for India, and we believe very strongly in this setting together with all, progress for all. So we'll be happy to share our knowledge with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Matti Vikkula, Scandinavian biogas. We saw from Anders and also from Mikael's slides that certainly waste can be you said a gold mine, but it can be of high value. Scandinavian biogas indicates biogas production. So what is your role in urban mobility? And what is your plans and ideas for India? Matti, please.
Hello, everybody. Great pleasure being here. Yes, the waste streams are a gold mine. So we at Scandinavian Biogas, we convert different kinds of the waste streams into biogas. That's our contribution to waste to energy and smart city concept. We produce biogas here in Stockholm, so we are the main supplier for the buses and taxi cars driving around and using biogas. We also produce in Korea, where the gas is used for industrial heat production. So the waste-to-energy based biogas can be used either in producing electricity or heat, or as we see in Sweden, as a vehicle fuel. The vehicle fuel usage of biogas is the growing trend in Europe, and we clearly see that the main benefits, the great benefits related to CO2 emissions and low particles emissions are the big drivers for biogas. Related to how to use this know-how in India, we have seen, based on our experiences in Korea and some other parts in Asia, that it's very important that there is a mutual interest from the supplier and the purchaser really to develop it long term. When using biogas and converting waste into energy, it's not only a technology issue, an equipment issue, rather it's also a process know-how issue. In biogas production, bacteria are doing the job, and therefore you have to understand how they behave. You need to have that kind of right software understanding in order to have a successful combination, combining the hardware, the equipment, and the software, the process know-how. We would be delighted to go forward in India as well with these opportunities and contribute to the smart city, and we definitely hope that Scania will be successful in delivering huge amounts of biogas buses in India, because the driver for us is the demand on the market. It's difficult to do pushy only.
So, do you have a favorite substrate? What is the best substrate to make biogas out of?
Here in Stockholm, we are converting in cooperation with Stockholm Vatten sludge, meaning wastewater treatment streams into biogas. We are just investing into a new facility which is using food waste. And in Korea, we are doing in combination.
You have a mix.
So, we have a mixed. We are very flexible. We can convert different kind of, organic materials into energy. On our laboratory, we have tested 300 different substrates in order to optimize the overall process. The know-how is there, just use it.
Okay. So the bridge now over to Jonas is very short, because NVAC is in waste handling internationally and since very long. Waste handling and transportation, probably sorting. So what can your contribution be to the smart city? And particularly, I think an interesting question is, what does NVAC system have to do with the urban mobility? Jonas Törnblom, please.
Thank you very much, Mats. Maybe I should explain what NVAC does. Some 50 years ago, we invented underground waste transportation. This is a concept where you put pipes under the streets of the city, and then you transport the municipal solid waste by air in these pipes, long distance, rather than running around with a truck, collecting it house by house. Waste collection is still, in many cities, the only manual individual service to each house. We had a lot of those 100 years ago. We had energy, we had water, we had sewage, etc. Today, it's only waste which remains. We can eliminate up to 90% of all the local circulation of heavy waste vehicles in the area. And we can eliminate a lot of the waste storage outside the buildings and inside the buildings in open places, etc., by storing it and transporting it underground. We have just introduced and inaugurated the first major system in India, in Gujarat, in the Gift City project, where we collect two separate waste streams, one wet waste and one dry waste. The dry waste is then sorted at our collection station in the area into materials, paper, plastic, metals, etc. The wet waste is converted to energy. This is an ideal way of doing it, eliminating all the waste trucks, eliminating all the open storage, and converting the waste on site to energy or to new materials. When it comes to mobility, I guess the question is, what types of transportation do we need in our cities? We can only focus on the waste collection traffic, but that's still making up some 10% of the heavy traffic in our cities, and we could reduce that by up to 90%.
Thank you. Now we have a picture of what all the companies here very relevant to smart city development, what they are doing. We have around 10 minutes left, and I would focus a next round on particularly one question, and that's where do you see the bottleneck and challenges, and what is needed for from your respectively perspective and position, what is needed for you to prevail in your ambitions to contribute to smart city? I think it's fair now, Anders. You have been quiet now for a long time, which is not very much you. So now you will enlighten us about that. What does Scania needs more than anything to prevail in these ambitions you have presented to us? Where are the bottlenecks?
Yeah, the bottlenecks is very much in what we talked about here, collecting waste and creating these fuels, and also the laws and the bureaucracy around it needs to be simplified and cleared. But it's also money. It's investments in these kind of systems that we need. I think there is enough with money in the world. Now we have to create the trust in India that the investors are coming in, investing in these kind of systems that is already existing here and now, from the companies you have heard about here on stage. So that is what I would say is the most important things. Changes of laws and procedures to make this happen. Because in Nagpur, where we are working right now, we can see a huge need. Nagpur is a city of 3.5 million inhabitants. It's 2 times Stockholm. And it doesn't have a clear waste treatment plan. I would also say city planners. So when we create smart cities, or if we do greenfield, or if we do brownfield, I live in Bangalore, and I don't see where we have the infrastructure and space to create the infrastructure needed to move the waste and to move the electrical auto rickshaws or buses or whatever we talk about. This is something that is a huge problem in India. The cities have been growing. I think Bangalore have been doubling its population every 10 years. But it doesn't have a decent city plan. That's also a big need.
Rules, regulations, city plan, and the business opportunities are there. Göran, what do you need? Sockets, charging stations, infrastructure for your electric rickshaw. What do you need? Where are the bottlenecks?
I don't think infrastructure is the big problem, since we charge with just an ordinary socket. That can be arranged, of course, when we scale this up. It may need some investment.
Is it like charging your mobile?
Yeah, well...
Kind of.
Kind of.
Okay.
It consumes as much as a microwave oven when you charge. So that's the same. No, our problem is pretty much the same. We have a quite cumbersome administrative process to get the vehicles up and running, approved and on the streets. And then it's a matter of industrialization where we would need investments and so on. That's the bottlenecks.
So, Mr. Gupta, your Swedish friends here, they are talking about rules and regulations and bureaucracy and such things. So, where do you see your great challenges in your contribution to smart city development?
Being a banker, I will start with something else. For me, the bottleneck is from P squared to P. Now, how do I elaborate it? From P squared to P, I would refer to policy and principles moving into practice. So this government has made a lot of policy and principles. Now we need to see at practice at ground zero. So whatever my friends have been talking about, various aspects of the business and policy making and implementation and all those things, I would see the larger perspective is that till it doesn't come down to the practice, be it from charging, be it from wet and dry waste management, be it from transportation, it needs a lot of things to be done. And that's why I talk about institutional governance, and that's why we talk about things to come into the right perspective with the practice. So that's why I would go back to my earlier word, P squared to P. So that is where I just leave it to you.
Yeah, you had a different starting point, but you ended up at the same place.
No, my starting point was more about how do we look into the larger perspective of smart city, which is beyond the word.
Yeah.
For us, we at Hinduja Group, just to give a few numbers, we have got more than 90,000 people, 38 countries, we are in 10 core sectors, and possibly 6 of them contribute to smart cities. So we are possibly the most active player in the smart city in the larger scheme of things. So whatever we have been talking about, I can fully understand because that's what I've been hearing it and personally witnessing it into the different parts of the world when we take it back to India. So possibly for smart city, looking beyond 1 or 2 aspects, but various things into it. So I would still go back in terms of bottleneck. A lot has to be done on the ground zero with regard to practice.
When I look at what you are doing in your group, and when I listen to your Swedish colleagues here, I should consider you as a potential interesting partner.
We are an investor group. We invest worldwide, and Sweden is one of the area where we would, one of the country where we would look into it, and definitely the only constraint we have is that we don't go out of our 10 verticals because that 10 is too much now for us. Yeah. So we don't go beyond that. And 4 or 5 of them, to be very honest, I think we have got commonality with Sweden and India and UK because the group is based out of London. So we always look into European market as much more common, close than to India. Yeah. So
okay. So there will be mingle opportunities after this. You can continue then.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Mikael, for the color systems, what holds back, if anything?
Well, introducing a parking solution for a city offers enormous amounts of income for the city. And also then it's a tool regulating the traffic and public transport flow. The bottleneck is actually some of the regulations because the police today have to issue the fine. So they walk then next to the traffic warden when he is issuing a clamp if somebody hasn't paid. So that is one thing, changing the regulation, who is allowed to make the fine, the citation. And the other one is, if you have 100 rupees an hour for parking and the fine is 200 rupees and you get caught 1 out of 10 times, I think nobody will pay. I wouldn't. But if it's 30 times higher, then it has a symbol of deterrence, or 60 times higher, then it will work. And how will the public buy into it? Well, it's still free parking in the evening. But the regulation of the fining and that can be done by the city authorities, not by the police. I think they have more important things to do, possibly. Thank you.
Thank you. So Matti, you are seriously considering India now, I understand. So what do you at this stage see as the most challenging aspect of such an entering into a market of the sort of India?
I would like to take 2 points at this point of time. Number one is the proper regulation for waste to energy overall. That needs to be in place. Assuming that that would be in place, the challenge number 2 is related to the localization. For the biogas part, it's self-evident that only during the first years of time export model, both for the technology and know-how, could be a suitable model, but with time you have to have local expertise, local suppliers for the equipment, subsystems, and then related to the know-how, you have to have the right kind of, say, personnel to run the sites. So I would say that the localization of the know-how in a proper way, in a broader context, is the challenge.
And Jonas?
Yes, I would say creating a smart city means connecting urban functions. And not only IT-related data, but also the work, connecting physically the different departments in the city, planning and administration, in order to reach these synergy effects, reach these cooperations that we have talked about, and improve the efficiency of the city. And I think this is governance. It comes down to governance that we need to focus upon. But without proper governance, we won't have the smart, environmentally friendly, sustainable cities, socially acceptable cities. So governance is key to everything we talk about.
Thank you. My watch just passed 10, and it's time to conclude. And what I hear you all saying here is that, and I think you are very confident in that, you have the technology, Mr. Gupta has the money, and then, but there are still some work to do in rules, regulation, interconnection with stakeholders involved in the city, smart city development. I think there is a saying you sometimes use, Jonas, eco-governance. I think eco-governance is a good final comment to what is needed, together with good technologies and long-lasting serious business partners, as we have here now. I think we give them a big hand. Thank you very much.